Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I wanted to do is kind of go over working with forms with jQuery and plain vanilla DOM manipulation. So let's go over it. So first thing let's do, let's create first just kind of show the basics of like form fields, okay, and how you can access those properties inside of a form field. So let's go into our index.html. I'll remove these divs. So it's just a normal blank canvas I have right now. So there's nothing in the body. I still have like all my jQuery linked in here and all that stuff. But basically, to create form fields, you're going to use this input tag. And then input tag, you would put type. Okay, which I'm going to start off with just a normal text input field. There's a whole bunch of them. You can Google the different types of fields, password, number, a whole bunch. So type text. And then you can actually put some placeholder text, so that way it gives people an idea of what they should type in there. So we'll just say, hey, type words. Okay. And if you wanted to actually have like a starting text, then you would put in a value, and that actually would be its starting value. And you can also give it a name property, which just allows you another way to grab it. It's more useful when you're using other frameworks. Okay. Also, what happens is that when you submit the form, when you're using form tags, it'll use that as the key for the data. So it'll create like a JavaScript object with all the different inputs, and each one will have a key that's the name property with the value. So we'll just say words. Okay, and that's it. You don't have to actually close the tag. It's just an input tag. Right now I'm not doing a full form, just a tag there. Okay. And then we're going to create a button. So right now we're just going to create a button, not a submit button. Okay. Click me. Save. So first we're going to do is we're going to create a function that will grab the value of the form, or of that input, when you use it. So first we'll do it in jQuery, then we'll do it in plain vanilla DOM manipulation. So basically we're going to create a function, so const get value equals, this is going to be a click function. We're not going to pass anything into it. Okay, essentially what this is going to do is first we actually have to go grab that input. So I can do something like this. So go grab, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab an input, but not just any input, the one that has the name equals words. Okay, I want to grab specifically the words input. Okay, so this grabs me an input element that has the name words. Okay, and before we even do anything else, let's just console log. Well, let's actually store that in a variable. So const input equals that. And then let's console log it to make sure that it's working, that we're actually grabbing the right element input. Save. So there's our function. It's just going to grab it and then console log it. And let's make that button do something. So we'll say on click equals, and in quotation marks we will put on click equals get value, and invoke the function. Okay, so it'll just invoke the get value function. Cool. And let's see here. Let's go back over here, refresh. Now if I type in some words, go to the console here, just type in some text, and I hit click me. Okay, and see we get this jQuery object. Inside of it's the input, good. And cool. Okay, so we're grabbing the right input. Now how do I grab the value of that input? Okay, what I can do, so we'll say the value const value equals input dot val. So jQuery has this function called val that grabs the value from that input. Save. Okay. And then we'll console log the value. Okay, so that's reloading. Now I type in some words. And see, a console log the value. That's the value of the thing. And it console logged again. Now what if I want the cool thing about the val function, like most jQuery functions, it works two ways. If I just invoke it with nothing, it grabs the value, but if I actually pass it something, it'll change the value. So we'll change it to cheese. So now watch what'll happen when I click on it. Whatever I have it at, it'll just change it to cheese. So if I go blue, 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 and then I click me, see it changes it to cheese. Okay. Why is it console logging value? Okay. I guess, oh, okay, so that's interesting. So essentially, if you set the value, it returns back the jQuery object that you altered. Because if we see here, see we got back the jQuery object, but nowhere in my code was I still grabbing it and console logging it anymore. So that means the value function returns it if you set a value. Cool, good to know. So in that case, what I would do then, let's do this, I can change. So in that case, if it returns a jQuery object, I can chain off of it. So I could say, hey, change it to cheese, and then grab me the value. And then that should do the trick, but I should probably save it first. And then if I go, see, I just put in some text, it'll change it to cheese and grab me cheese. And that worked. Cool. So that's the jQuery way of doing that. Okay, so let me just put title jQuery method. The jQuery way. And we'll comment this out. Now we'll do it the plain vanilla way. Okay. Plain vanilla way. Oh, when we do that, so const get value equals function arrow. Again, first we have to go get the input. So in this case, we're going to use document dot query selector, but I'm only grabbing one, so I just need query selector. And again, you can search it based on the CSS selector. So I'm going to just use the same selector. Very nice. Cool. And once we do that, and we want to oh yeah, wait, let's see here. We want to get the value, so it should just be const value equals. In this case, we're grabbing the direct. We're not grabbing a jQuery object. We're grabbing a DOM element. So in that case, it's just a property. So it should just be the input dot value. We'll find out for sure in a second. So let's make sure that that all worked. Console dot log value. Save. So again, what did we do? We grabbed the input field. Then we grabbed its value, and then we're logging it. So let's see if this still works. Let me just refresh it just to be 100% sure. Do. Yep, see, it worked. The console logged the value. Now if I change the value to 1, 2, 3, whatever, and see, now I get that. So that works. Okay, now let's do the same thing where I changed it. So what if I wanted to change the value? Okay. Then what I could just do first is just say input dot value equals cheese. I actually put the string cheese. Save. And then again, this will turn it to cheese. This grabs the value, and again, we should end up where we left off before. So I put in some text, and this should change it to cheese before it does anything, and there it does. It changes it to cheese first, and then console logs the value. So that's just the basic way to work with with different input fields using JavaScript and jQuery. Now, things get a little bit more complicated once you inject the form tag. Okay, so let's just save this so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this button now. We don't need this anymore. And we'll now wrap this input in a form tag. Okay. And in this case, we need to put a submit button so we can submit. So we need to create another input. There's a special type of input called submit that acts as a submit button, means it submits the form that it's wrapped with. So it's wrapped, all these input fields that are wrapped by the form all turn into a group as long as they're wrapped by form. And here we want to put in a value of whatever we want the button to say. So we'll say submit. Okay, nice. And again, we could give it a name if we want to, but I don't think that'll be necessary. Okay, and forms have their own events. When you submit the form, I don't have to add an event to one of these inputs. I need to add an event to the form. Okay, which I could, I could add it manually here. And I can just do on submit equals whatever, which is what we'll do. Just keep it simple. Okay, if you saw my first jQuery video or my other jQuery video, you probably saw me already talk about how to kind of add on-click events and do it the jQuery or plain vanilla DOM way with add event listener. But here I'm just going to add it directly in the HTML, just for the sake of simplicity, and to kind of focus on illustrating the grabbing and the using of data. So usually what we'll do here is we'll do const submit handler. So usually convention is when you're creating like functions that happen when an event happens, you give it like the suffix handler. So submit handler, click handler, change handler. Okay, because it just tells another developer, it's like, oh, okay, that's something that's going to handle when a certain event happens. Okay, so const equals. Okay, and basically, what do we want to happen when we submit? Well, let's actually, I think an event object is passed in when there's a form, so let's first console log that and start there. Okay, save. And something should go wrong, but I don't want to say what it is yet. Okay, so on submit equals quotation marks submit handler, then we invoke it. So whenever I hit the submit button, it'll invoke that submit handler. So let's go back to our code here and see there's a submit button. So I can type in whatever. Now if I hit submit, see console logged undefined for like a second and then it disappeared. Why? The reason being is that when you hit the button, what it does, it causes what's called stop. It's automatically going to refresh. Okay, forms always automatically refresh when you submit on a form tag, and when I do an on here, there is no event object. Okay, so I think the event object only exists if we do handle the event from in our JavaScript. So I'm going to take this out of here, and we're going to have to do this a little bit differently. So first we'll do it with jQuery, then we'll do it with JavaScript. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab that element with jQuery. So jQuery, and we're grabbing the form. And there's only one form, so I won't need to get more specific than that. And then we'll do dot on to create an event handler. And we're going to handle a submit, so it's on submit. And then we're just going to pass in that submit handler function. Okay, save. Now this doesn't fix the refresh problem, but now at least we should have an event pop up. So let's go back here and take a look at whether that happens. So I type in all that, I hit submit, and see now we do have an event, but see it disappears right away because again, submitting a form always causes it to refresh. So how do I prevent that? Well, this is where that event object becomes so important. If I don't want to refresh the page, because the form tag was intended that you were going to send the information somewhere else. Okay, you would go send it to, you're making what's called a post request. And it was designed with that in mind. So it's like, well, if you're going to go post it to another website, the page is going to refresh because you're going to go send it to some other website. But that is not what we want to do here. So we want to create our own logic for what we want to happen. So we need to stop the default logic. Okay, so how do we do that? We do prevent, we're going to do event dot prevent default. This is a function that in certain DOM elements will prevent the default behavior. So for forms, it prevents that default behavior of refreshing. Okay, so now when I hit save and we go back and this refreshes, now I type in some words, I hit submit, and there it goes. It doesn't refresh. So now I can actually look at my event here. Cool. Boop, 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 boo. And we can kind of see the, see if there's anything here we want to use. Current target, data, no data. Okay, console, form, there's stuff there. But nothing we really need there. Okay, so in this case, what I would have to do is then go back and grab each individual form element and grab their value and decide what I want to do with it. Because the form doesn't package it for you in this situation. The form packages it you if you use it in its default way where it makes a post request. And then it'll send that via some sort of AJAX request to wherever you wanted to send it to. Or to another page, depending on how you handled it. But in this case, not happening. So I would have to again go back, use my jQuery to grab all those different input tags, grab the value, do whatever I want with it. Cool. So now how would I do this in plain vanilla? So I don't want to load in, let's say I don't want to load in the jQuery library, then I have to do it like this. So const submit handler. Okay, and actually this function will pretty much stay the same. That doesn't really change at all. The only difference is that how we add the event listener. So in this case, I would have to do document dot query selector, and then we pass in. We're going to select the form, and then we're going to add an event listener to that form, and it's going to be on submit, and we're going to use the submit handler. Okay, so that's sort of the difference in how much typing is. That's why people like jQuery, because that's a lot more typing. It's the same thing. I'm selecting the form, and I'm adding the listener. Except here it's just more succinct. So I hit save, and we should pretty much get the same result. Because by default, the plain vanilla, like when you do an event listener, it's still going to pass in that event object. That's not a unique thing to jQuery, so they both kind of pass it in there. So if I do this, and I go blah, 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 I hit submit, and there you go. So there's my submit event. I can take a look at all the data in it. Path, form, see if there's anything here that's useful, target. Okay, and then here we have the access to the different form elements. So target, so there's an array of targets, there's an array of inputs. So let's actually try console logging that. So let's add this console dot log event dot target 0 dot value. Okay, because basically when I'm looking at it, I see that here's the well, it refreshed. So let's try this, and there you go. Yeah, so that works. So in the event, at least in this version, I'll go back and take a look and see if it was there in the other version. Under target, there's an array of all the form elements. So I can go in there, and if I wanted to, I can just go in there and grab the value from each element. I can just maybe loop over this array, or have a function that goes in there and construct a bunch of key values. Yeah, I could probably use map to create that object. Let's actually do that real quick because that'd be kind of cool. So How would I do that? I would do event.target.map. I would just say const form data equals event.target.map, pass in value index. Each one's going to be each array, and then it's going to return well, it's going to do it one by one. So what it will do is we'll return an array. Return an array that equals the value dot something, and then the value dot index. No, value dot value. Because again, the value of the form is the form field is value, and then we'll say value dot name, which it should, at least the first one should have name. So let me just make sure that's the case. So form. Here's the first input. Should have a name property. Let's just make sure that it does, because I added that in the HTML. We saw that. So yep, name words. So I should add that to the submit button as well, so that way this is all consistent. So that way it doesn't error out either. Name equals submit. Save. And save here. Okay, and then actually what I want to do is take this and make this a new map. Or actually, yeah, we'll just make it a map. Don't want to get too complicated. It's already getting a little complicated. Okay, a new map. That's just basically this arrays. Because I structured it like the way it was a map, where it's an array of key and values. Cool. Okay, so let's see if that worked. So I'll type in some stuff. Map is not a function. Okay, well I was on the kind of the right track, but you guys get the idea. So that's the basic idea of how you could play with a form. So again, you can access that event object, but bottom line, again, the main things to remember is making sure that if you're using a form tag, to use that prevent default to prevent it from refreshing every time, unless you're sending that post request to another site, which gets into a different conversation. But hopefully this gave you an idea of how to work with forms in jQuery and plain vanilla DOM manipulation. Have a good one, and ciao.